How do you feel? You ready for this?
Yeah, of course. Let's go.
Let's go, dude. All right. So, what was the initial spark of inspiration that set this album in motion, and how did that initial spark evolve throughout the creative process?
So, as it stood, I had made Forever when I was 17, and I had made Falling in Love when I had just turned 18, I want to say. And they were just singles to me. Like, they weren't connected in any way. It was like, okay, cool. These are two great songs that I've made, and I like them. Let's see what happens. And then I think it was Do You Still Love Me that we made, where I was like, oh, wait, there's something here. And I already had the title, right? And I was like, oh, this might be the LUVMORE project. I was like, oh, this could be it. And then I started like kind of piecing it together, and I was like, okay, Do You Still Love Me? Great intro. It has to be an intro because those strings cannot go anywhere else.
Mm,
Right? I was like, those opening strings have to start the project. So I was like, okay, cool. Do You
chilling,
Still
chilling down my spine.
Exactly. And I was like, it has to be that because if I start an album and I hear that shit, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna listen to this whole thing.
Whole
Right?
thing for sure. Yeah.
So Do You Still Love Me made, and I was like, okay, cool. Where can I start to put stuff and where are the gaps? And I was like, okay, cool. As we have it, it kind of sounds like Do You Still Love Me is like sadness, and then Forever is like everything's gone wrong. So Do You Still Love Me was kind of like doubt, and then Forever was like the proof of the doubt.
Mm,
And then I was like, wait, this is literally like chronicling what happened when I was 17 with like my past relationship, but then also moving into my new relationship and how I found out that um kind of like that in looking for love, you find love in unexpected places.
hmm,
Or places that it should be expected from really. So like these four walls, like my family and friends. When I ended that other relationship, I found out that my family and friends were so there for me. And like it could only be the most purest of love that would drive people to be this supportive of me in a time like this. Um, and so yeah, I started to look for those gaps in the story, right? So I had Do You Still Love Me Forever, and then I had Falling in Love. And I was like in between Forever, which is like the breakup, and then Falling in Love, which is like the new relationship, right? What happened in between there? And I was like, oh, I found my family and my friends. I found their love for me. Like it was proven, right? I was like, okay, cool. Let me dedicate a song to them and to the place where we grew up and where we found that love, right? And then it was Falling in Love, and I was like, no, I need an outro. Like I need something to solidify the message of this song, this project. And That's Just How It Goes was the last song that I made. And it was kind of just like almost taking everything, like all the experiences of Love More, and being like, okay, cool, this stuff will happen. Like the bad stuff will happen, but so will the good stuff, you know? And it's like, I guess we just gotta be cool with that. Like, I guess we just gotta be cool that, yo, like, shit will happen. Maybe someone will die. Someone will leave us. We'll be fucking sad. And then we'll remember, oh, we have these people. New people will come. Love will happen. And that's just the nature of it. And we have to appreciate both of those things, right? And there is inherently love on both sides of those things.
yeah.
Because the reason that you're so sad after a breakup is because you love someone, right? The reason that you're so sad after someone passes is because you love them and you're going to continue to love them and there's nowhere for that love to go, right? And then in that same vein, when you find someone new, you're happy because you love them and because you have love to give, and you're happy because you are loved by your friends and your family. And I think That's Just How It Goes was kind of a summation of the fact that there's romance in everything, regardless of whether it's good or bad. Like there is a love to be found in everything, and love is everywhere. And that was like the conclusion of it's basically like almost like an essay of like, okay, yeah, this is my hypothesis, this is what happened, this is what I found out, this is where we are now, this is my conclusion, here's everything and why it was important. And yeah, that was kind of it. Like there was never really like I suppose the spark was "Do You Still Love Me?" And being like, "Oh, this is the LUVMORE project."
Is there a specific track on the album that feels like the emotional centerpiece or anchor of the project?
Um, I think for me it changes every day.
Okay.
But I think there is only really two, and I think that is the intro and the outro. "Do You Still Love Me?" and "That's Just How It Goes." Um, I think "Do You Still Love Me" is good at like setting the scene, right? Like it sets the scene. It's like, hey, there is so much doubt, there is so much sadness, but there's beauty in that as well, and which kind of speaks to the rest of the project. But then, like I said, "That's Just How It Goes" is a summation of the entire thing. So if I had to pick one, it would be "That's Just How It Goes,"
Mhm.
um, because it is a summation, and it kind of acknowledges everything that happens in the previous songs. Um, but saying that, I think "That's Just How It Goes" doesn't do that job without the other four tracks, right? Like you can listen to it and you'll enjoy it as a song, but the context is only as deep as when you listen to it in context, right? Whereas I think "Do You Still Love Me" does a great job of being like a standalone track and
Yeah.
still conveying those emotions. So yeah, it's a toss up between those two every day, and they're really like two of my favorite tracks on the project anyway. Um, so yeah, every day it might be something different for me, and I think it will be for anyone that listens to it.
Do you listen to the project a lot, like every day, or?
Um, so I have this thing. I don't know if other artists have this. I've never spoken to them about it, but I will think I am like a genius and like love my own stuff when it's not out, and then once it's out, I'm like, yeah, that's out. I don't have to listen to it anymore, and I won't touch it. Maybe like first week that's out, I'll touch it to like make sure it sounds okay, and I'll be like, oh hey, this actually sounds really good. Let me listen to this again. So that's just how it goes for me. I was like, oh, this sounds really good on Spotify. Like I'm gonna listen to this again. Um, but like now that it's out, like after the first week, I'm like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll revisit these like every 6 months or whatever. But I won't really touch LUVMORE myself. Um, and I don't know whether that's just like a mental block on my end. I'm sure there are artists that like listen to that shit religiously. But for me, once it's out, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. You guys enjoy that. I've enjoyed it too much. Like,
So, dude, how does this album represent who you are right now, both as a person and an artist?
well, like artistically, I think there is so much representation in that I am a storyteller and that I take like being able to make something immersive and a world so seriously, and it's so important to me. And as well as that, just sonically, the alternative R&B side of things, like the cinematic feel of things, it all speaks to who I am as an artist, musically. And then from like a personal perspective, I think it 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 kind of is this for me, it's almost a display of like what I've learned from 17 to 19. It's kind of, oh, here's what I went through, here's what I learned. Like I said, it's like an essay almost in a way, and I've never really thought about that until this interview. But it is kind of like me putting forth my findings on like life
Yeah.
as a teenager, right? Um, so I think yeah, it's some of it is still who I am, right? And I think there are parts of every song where I'm like, this is still who I am. Um, but it's who you are and then how you've chosen to live with it,
Mm.
and, and the acceptance of that. And I think that's what it is. That's how it speaks to me personally, like after its release.
Were there any unexpected challenges or breakthroughs during the recording process that ended up shaping the final sound?
I think the Forever had to be mixed like 11 times.
What
It
was wrong?
just it just I just because Forever was the oldest song, it was like an evolution of my skills as an engineer.
Yeah.
So I mixed everything myself, but like when I first mixed it, I was like, "Oh, this sounds great," and then I came back to it, I was like, "This sounds like ass." Um, but it was one of those things where I just couldn't. And maybe it was like because there's something to be said that a good mix starts with the recording, right?
Yeah.
So like good quality sound is all about how you lay the foundations of the production, the recording, whatever. And it was at a point in my life where I wasn't thinking about those things. So I think there were just roadblocks within that process, set in stone from the start, just because I wasn't thinking in that way. That made it super difficult to come back to, like two years on. Uh, and so yeah, Forever was a massive roadblock. I had to mix it like 11 times, and every time I was like, yeah, this is the one, and then it wasn't because I was like, oh, that snare needs to be turned down, oh, the bass needs to be turned up, like whatever, whatever. And I ended up with something that I was happy with, but it was very like it was a very laborious process. And there was something similar with These Four Walls as well. I just couldn't like there was like maybe three different vibes for These Four Walls. Like the very first demo of These Four Walls was super electronic,
Mm.
like loads of synths and stuff. Um, and yeah, I decided to kind of strip it back, put everything on piano, and I was like, okay, cool, this is fine. And then there was a version with loads of vocal layers, like doing weird shit. And then there was a version that was like super guitar heavy, and it was kind of just like finding what worked. And I think it found its place amongst everything else in the final version. And I wouldn't go back and change it at all. Like I'm glad I stuck with just piano and like kind of a stripped back feel almost. But yeah, that was a big challenge, and I think that like having used any of those other versions would have dramatically changed the feel of the entire project.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think yeah, there were a few, but nothing really like world ending
Yeah.
or like earth shattering in terms of like a breakthrough or a roadblock.
Um, yeah. So, what do you hope listeners take away from this album after the first listen, and then after their fifth? Like,
Yeah.
do you kind of have a vision of how this project evolves as people continue to listen to it? And what is that? What is that takeaway that you want people to have?
Well, I think based on the way that I can only speak from the way that I would listen to music, and the way that I like ingest albums and stuff, right? I the A big part of my thought process when creating this was the balance between emotion conveyed through the way it sounds sonically and like the musicality versus the content of what I'm saying and how that's delivered. And so I think like on first listen, I want them to focus on the musicality. I want them to just take it as it is, surface level, and kind of allow the musicality to influence how they feel. Because I think we've done such a good job at crafting music and composition that mirrors the sentiment that we want to convey within the lyrics.
Mhm.
So I'm happy not to be a forefront the very first listen, because for me, lyrics rarely ever are the forefront of my first listen to music. I'm almost always just listening for music and vibe and kind of taking in the space that that project exists in, right, sonically. And then on the fifth listen, I want them to have that under that in-depth understanding of what this is about and like have really delved into the lyrics and that's why I like having my lyrics available on Spotify and Apple Music and like synced up with the audio so that people can follow along and like be like, oh, this is what he's saying, this is what he's talking about, how do I feel about this? So by the fifth listen, I kind of want them to have interpreted the music in their own way and like taking those lyrics and being like, oh, this is how it relates to my life. This is how I feel about it. And I think both of those times, I want there to be deep emotion, and I
Mhm.
want there to be tears, right? Just for different reasons, maybe stemming from the same experiences, the same feelings, um, but coming from two different sources almost.